Hello and welcome to Bardscraft. Today we're making a beautiful dragon from junk. With a bit of patience, you can also make this. I'll show you how. The dragon is made from cardstock. First I designed a slender shape for the body and cut it out carefully. I shaped it a bit rounder and then applied hot glue under it in order to give it some mass and strength. The shape actually becomes quite impressive for what it is. Here is a dwarf for scale. A few test scales. They look okay, so I continued by cutting out approximately enough scales for the entire dragon. For the cardstock cutouts, I use about the same logic as I did when building this gold dragon. You can find a link to the free templates below. Moving on, I glued and bent the scales onto the body. We start from the tail, because that allows us to layer the scales properly. Here it is best to use low temperature hot glue. It's cool enough to handle with bare fingers. These scales are actually quite easy to make. Just make sure to get rid of excess glue to keep the scales clean. Hey, now we have a tanky worm. I applied more glue on the tummy side. Now everything should stay in place. I was also able to make smooth textures with the hot gun's tip. I decided to use spruce for making limbs. I cut these quite short, bent pieces and attached them with super glue. I didn't want to make more mess with hot glue. I managed to get the limbs in a pretty good position, but still looks quite goofy, as it should. I continued by cutting these simple pieces. They are glued over the limbs like this. Most of the spruce is covered and we get these nice pointy thingies. I reinforced the tips with more super glue. I kept gluing on more pointy scale-shaped pieces over the arms and legs. Ideally, scales are overlapped. Before making the claws, I whittled the arms thinner. Specifically the ends. This is easy to do with a sharp X-Acto knife. With a dull one you might tear off a limb, no good. I cut small claws while honoring the patrons who make these videos possible. I made several quite thin, sharp claws and glued them in place. The paws and claws are a bit chunky now, but they can be thinned and sharpened soon. Now plenty of extra glue and a little cardstock cutout should make this mess strong enough. Just a few more claws. Yeah, I like the stance of the figure. It's becoming more lifelike each step. A quick dragon manicure should be good here. I had conveniently glued the whole thing onto the cutting board, so the shaving of plastic was easy. While at it, I also made some details on the claws, deep grooves that will be clearly visible. It is now time to make the head. I designed a test cutout and tried it on. Good. I made another, improved head cutout. Here I decided to also make templates for this dragon. You can also find them in the descriptions. Let's see. You simply fold here. Okay, but too large. I cut away some and glued on the head. Next comes the jaw. This piece is attached with PVA glue. Here I gently filled the lower part of the mouth with hot glue and then reinforced the tips and edges with super glue. Yeah, and the tips are bent out for a better look. Okay, to get some texture, I applied irregular blobs of PVA glue on the head. This has worked well before, as it adds highlights and roughness. We can also put some on the body. As for eyes, I glued on these tiny cardstock bits. This turned out much less goofy than expected. Great. Next I got some more cardstock for making the wings. I tried a few wing designs and ended up with something like this. My biggest concern was not to hide too much of the dragon under the wings. The beauty of dragons is that it doesn't have to make that much sense. These curves and pointy things are impractical, but look good. The wings are quickly bent into shape like this. And then glued on. I wanted to make the wings removable. I glued pointy sticks under the wings, then poked holes into the side of the dragon. Now this mini can be used as a drake, giant lizard or dragon. I improved the wings by making these beautiful cutouts using the wings as guidance. A bit tricky to cut out, but worth it. I glued these on, while simultaneously further bending the wings to desired shape. Also toughened the edges with glue. When all of this dries, the wings are quite sturdy. After a while, I also made some irregular streaky PVA glue textures on parts of the wings. This kind of looks like skin. Weird dragon skin. Very nice textures, although they do fade a bit when the glue dries. While that dried, I finished the tail with a piece that follows a similar pattern to that of the wing. I managed to glue it under the last scale. Then I cut from the side of the cutout and got this thin piece that I carefully attached on the tail. More glue, of course, and textures. With all of this texture, I believe the dragon will be fun to paint. What's even more fun is to create a tiny diorama base for the figure. I found some junk cardboard and shaped it into a base of suitable size. Did you know you don't need a saw for hardboard bases? I took this piece of XPS foam and thought it would do well as a obelisk or cliff. I cut it into better shape. Now we have places for miniatures to stand. A mysterious, oddly shaped cliff of power in the woods. That's what this is going to be. I cut these deep grooves using the X-Acto knife. Perhaps the dragon is guarding this thing, whatever it is. I glued this on and also made another smaller piece. Next I went out to get some bark bits from a pine tree. If the tree is not yours, make sure it's at least dead. Bark is a great material for making rocky formations such as these 2B stone bits I'm creating. I glued these on in a way that leaves room for the dragon to be placed nicely on the diorama. If you're here for chopping noises, good for you. I chopped some of the bark to be used as rubble textures on the ground. If your bark is finely chopped, or if you use fine sand for the same purpose, you can cover all of the ground carelessly. For larger grids, I recommend only covering some areas, or else the ground becomes too rough. I've been there. To get the most out of these textures, also add some on vertical surfaces. After a while, I apply more diluted glue to make this resistant to violent dry brushing. These are next base painted. Dark brown for the ground, black for the stone. Oops, almost forgot to make the stone textures using the sacred ball of aluminum foil. Yeah, black, and the dragon is fully covered with dark red. I used proper mini paint for the dragon. I'll do the diorama first. The ground is dry brushed with a lighter brown. Then the stone surfaces get a diluted dark blue coverage. I applied less of the blue on the obelisk thing, because I also made a dark red diluted paint for it. The blue and red gives nice undertones for the craft, which are slightly visible under the following layers of paint. You can use moist paper to evenly mess about the paint. Next in this simple paint job is to dry brush everything with grey. Per usual, enjoy some brushing noises. The ground is brushed a bit less. Mainly the larger bits of bark get a more stony appearance from the grey. The next layer is drake tooth. With this dry brushing, I try to especially hit the edges to get clearly defined highlights. Get this color, it's very useful. Okay, to get some grass done, I made my usual simple hemp grass flocking. I covered a bit more than half of the ground, and also remembered to place some on top of the stone formations. Then I added grass tufts, also made from hemp rope. Beautiful. If you start out with terrain building, don't underestimate the importance of good flocking. The tufts and grass can be colored afterwards with green. I applied dark green over the grass with little care. I kind of intentionally smudged the paint all around to get green on the rubble and stone as well. To increase vibrance, some brighter green and red should also work wonders. The red will go well with some details I intend to paint on the dragon. This is my quickest, cheapest method up to date for creating your own flocking. It's good. Now let's move on to the painting of the dragon. First I overbrushed almost everything using the green from earlier. The skin of the wings and tail are painted with dark red. And also this part of the head. Next I dry brushed the dragon with a vibrant green. Scales are the most fun thing to dry brush. Now the glue textures are appearing beautifully. I brushed the claws with drake tooth. Very nice. I used this color to dry brush the red areas as well, then decided to dry brush pretty much everything. I might have brushed a bit too much. The green became faded. To fix this, I made a dark green wash to tone everything down. Good. Next I made some light edge highlights with a yellow-green. Works better than the drake tooth dry brush. Using this color, I made sure to highlight the PVA glue dots I've made. Then I took the red paint and colored some of the dots and highlight. I made some edge highlights on the wings. After some cleaning up, I painted the eyes with yellow, orange and black. Didn't expect to pull that off. Then I finished the dragon with some dark wash between the scales and other recesses, such as here on the wings. Something is still missing. Trees. Hey, now I humbly ask you to subscribe if you already haven't. Really helps the channel. Thank you. I got these dry twigs for trees. Really simple, no paint needed, and since I don't have any good ideas for making proper tree flocking, I leave them as they are. I like this look, or then I'm just lazy. The glue is hidden under flocking. I applied some brown pigment powder on different places of the diorama. I also carefully added a bit on the lower parts of the dragon. Pigments are awesome. One more thing shall be made. Strange flowers. I whittled some elegantly shaped tiny wood bits. These are painted with dark red and orange. I highlighted the edges of the bits with red and yellow. They seem to work quite well, as long as I can get them in clumps of flocking or in corners. Here I noticed that some areas can be darkened a bit with a strong tone wash. Wow, this must be the most beautiful dragon-related build I've made so far. It can even be used as a cute giant lizard as well. I'll surely make another type of dragon in the future, since they are very fun to build once you get the hang of it. You can try to make your own using the free templates, or check out some of these other miniatures I've made for inspiration. Hey, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you like the video and consider joining me on Patreon if you like to get in touch. The Patreon support really allows me to make more of these videos. Goodbye for now, I'll see you in the next video.